Everybody, it's me, your buddy Dave, the host of the Dark Stuff channel here on YouTube. Thanks a lot for checking out my latest video. Now, this week's video is going to be in defense of the 1977 Aerosmith album, Draw the Line. Now, who am I defending it from? Well, you know, critics, most fans, the band itself. None of them consider this to be among the band's greatest, yet I do. This whole thing stems from a video I did a couple weeks ago called Goodbye Aerosmith. And in that video, my intent was to talk about Aerosmith's retirement, my thoughts on that, recounting the couple of times that I saw Aerosmith, you know, over the years. I've been a fan since I was about 10 years old, probably, in 1981. I used to hear songs like Sweet Emotion, Back in the Saddle, Walk This Way, etc. on the radio on Z92. We've discussed many times. I was a creature of the radio, listened to it every minute I wasn't at school. My video, though, kind of got hijacked / sidetracked a little bit because Omaha, where I live, had this massive power failure, and because of a storm, people were out of power for a long time. I kind of lost my shit during it, and most of that video was me recounting how I lost it during that time. I did get a little Aerosmith talk in there, of course, and I started seeing some other people's videos out there, other people recounting their story about Aerosmith and their thoughts on the band ending, and some people in the vinyl community. I know I saw Todd, my friend Todd over at Lost Mixtapes, did one where he talked about his favorite Aerosmith records. But what was nearly universal was that nobody was talking about this album as one of Aerosmith's best, and I have to say, I don't get it.
Draw the Line, the new spirit of Aerosmith.
So I'm not going to give you the entire history of Aerosmith, whatever. I assume if you've already clicked on this video, you know most of it. But you know the first four records are revered and are considered to be among rock's best, especially hard rock from the 70s. You get into like Toys in the Attic, the third album, and you're talking like platinum at this point, you know, Walk This Way and Toys in the Attic and Sweet Emotion, etc. It's just massive rorecord. The next year, they put out Rocks, 1976. This album, 4 times platinum. Aerosmith is practically the biggest rock band in the world at this point. You got Back in the Saddle, you got Last Child, and then after Rocks, the band made Draw the Line, okay, 1977. Now, if you read any of the biographies of Aerosmith, you've seen any of the behind the musics or whatever, you know that at this point, these guys were taking a ton of drugs.
And yes, we are grateful and surprised that we are here.
I mean, they were keeping the countries of like Bolivia in business, okay? And Joe Perry had this famous quote where he said by 1977, the band were drug addicts who dabbled in music as opposed to musicians who dabbled in drugs. Tyler says basically the same thing. The band's producer, Jack Douglas, says basically the same thing, that they were so caught up in drugs that it damaged this album and it's really not considered a good one. I don't know. I mean, I will say drugs definitely conquered Aerosmith at one point, but I don't think it was for another year or two after this. I think this album it stands alone in some musical uniqueness. I think the production is fantastic. I think the songs are great. I think all the performances are great. If this is Tyler fucked up beyond belief, like, well, whatever. I mean, I'll take it because he's really good on this album, you know? Draw the Line was actually the last album to feature all 5 original members of Aerosmith for about 7 years, not until 1984 when they did Done with Mirrors. But most of the time when people are talking about the glory days of Aerosmith, they do go from Rocks and then they jump about 10 years to Permanent Vacation, Pump, Get a Grip, etc., and talk about that period and leave this kind of middle period there alone. Now that, you know, middle period or whatever has Live Bootleg and has Night in the Ruts, which is the album where Joe Perry's only on half the record. Greatest Hits, which every kid my age had Aerosmith's Greatest Hits, this version of it at one point. Rockin' a Hard Place, that was 1982. That's with Jimmy Crespo and Rick Dufay as the guitar players in that point because Brad Whitford had left also. And then, of course, Done with Mirrors, as I mentioned, is the one where the guys all get back together. And I think most of that period is sort of overlooked a lot of times when talking about the greatest Aerosmith. But I'm not going to talk about all that stuff. I'm only going to talk about Draw the Line. I've always really liked it, and now let's discuss why. The album starts off with the title track, Draw the Line. I think that is indisputably a fantastic tune. It was one of the singles along with Kings and Queens and Get It Up. And it is just a Aerosmith rager. You get Steven Tyler doing that screaming thing like he did in Back in the Saddle, and they're sort of similar in certain ways. And I've heard it described. I'm not a musician, but I've heard it described as being sort of along those same kind of musical lines, just a lot faster. The second track, I Want to Know Why, is just incredible, and it stands out among great Aerosmith 70s tracks that are they have just so many of them, but I don't understand why I Want to Know Why wasn't used as more of a single and why it's not considered a classic now. It's like, the song is like, I want to know why everybody's good intentions trying to make a fool out of me. Great effing song, good lyrics, not stupid, not about your dick and whatever. It was about more interesting shit, and I thought that was a good song. Should have been used as a single as opposed to Get It Up, which we'll talk about in a second. Next up on side one is Critical Mass, and that's my favorite song on the album. It is so unusual for Aerosmith. It just sounds different musically, lyrically. It's odd. Joe Perry wasn't really involved. This is Brad Whitford. This is Steven Tyler, and Jack Douglas, the producer, were the ones who wrote this tune. According to Douglas, Tyler had nothing for lyrics, just absolutely nothing. So Jack Douglas wrote the lyrics for Critical Mass, gave them to Tyler, and he didn't alter them a bit. Now, I believe that. They are great, though. They're so different, where he's like, celebrate, 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 this is a Critical Mass. Now, I don't know that Tyler even really understands the concept behind Critical Mass, but it doesn't matter because he sings it so well. They weren't his words or whatever. He didn't know, and that's probably why that song didn't stand the test of time, why they never played it much or whatever, and why it's been largely forgotten, because it's kind of a Jack Douglas and Tom Hamilton composition, but whatever, it's fantastic. Next up on that side is Get It Up, and this is a song that I'm just like, musically, it shreds, okay? It is great, fast, really aggressive Aerosmith. But the lyrics, I just don't think they were thinking this one through, Tyler was, because considering Aerosmith's sort of macho, very male audience in 1977, are you going to get guys to sing along to a tune where the chorus is, I can't get it up, gotta get it up, I can't get it up? Okay, I just don't think that people are going to want to sing along to that, and yet it was the third single from the album in 1978. It was released as a single. Weird, no idea. Good song, but you're going to be singing some weird shit when you're singing it out loud. Side one closes out with Bright Light Fright, which is, I believe, Joe Perry's first solo vocal. Now, he wrote the song solo combination on Rocks, but I think that's him and Tyler doing vocals. I don't think it's just Perry solo. So I believe Bright Light Fright is considered to be the first solo Joe Perry vocal in Aerosmith. The song itself, he says it was inspired by hearing the Sex Pistols and by a lot of punk rock that he was hearing. And, that makes sense. It's fast. It's aggressive. Lyrically, it's like, okay. It's decent. I wouldn't put it up in the upper echelon, and it's certainly not as good as Critical Mass, I Want to Know Why, and Draw the Line, but it's good nonetheless. Flip over to side two and you listen to Kings and Queens. That's probably the album's best known song, and if you own a greatest hits album from Aerosmith, either that red one that I showed or just any of the myriad of other ones that have come out since in the last 30 years or so, maybe you're going to find Kings and Queens on it. Maybe. It is a different Aerosmith song. I think it's awesome. Again, Jack Douglas claims a heavy hand in writing the lyrics. Again, there was no Joe Perry on that one. It was Douglas, Tyler, and Hamilton, and Brad Whitford wrote that one. I think it's great. The lyrics, kings and queens and guillotines. I don't know. It gives you this otherworldly kind of feel. I think it was really cool, and I wish the band considered that more one of their classics, because honestly, they could take out I don't know. Let's not get into that. It's trying to say they shouldn't play this one. I mean, they don't play anymore anyways. They're retired. After Kings and Queens is The Hand That Feeds, another great song, super original sounding. I love the playing. I love the production. I think Tyler's vocals are great. Sight for Sore Eyes after that is more your prototypical Aerosmith rocker. Doesn't sound super unique, but it also doesn't sound bad either. You know, it's Sight for Sore Eyes. You know, it's good. It's good. And then the album closes with Milk Cow Blues, which is a cover song that the band had been playing for many years prior to recording it. So those are all the songs. There's not a bad track among it. I know I kind of criticized the lyrics of Get It Up. I think when you're talking about the classics of Aerosmith and you are talking about those first four, I think you got to include the first five. I think you have to include Draw the Line. And I think that some of those songs, even ones like Critical Mass and I Want to Know Why, should start being included in collections or whatever. Even on Apple Music, like, has their deep cuts. They're not on there either. They should be in the deep cuts. You know, my Aerosmith listening goes into Permanent Vacation, Pump, and then probably that was the last one that I really cared about. Get a Grip. Yeah, I like the videos because I like Liv Tyler and what's her name, the blonde one from Clueless. But was I really into those songs? I mean, Crying and this? No. I think when you talk about the classic Aerosmith, for me, it's Aerosmith was 73 to like maybe 1990. And then I don't really follow them too much after that. So in conclusion, I will ask the question. I mean, what do you think of Draw the Line? Should it be considered one of Aerosmith's best albums? Or are you like, Dave, dude, the album sucks. Like, they were so drugged out. It didn't produce any classics, whatever. I mean, I don't know. Where do you stand? Answer below. I would love to hear from you. Thanks a lot for watching, everyone. Take care.
So, you have a MySpace page or something?